Katie, you ready? All right, we will get started. Well, first, good evening, everyone. My name's Brian Bussler. I'm the superintendent of schools, and this is the one board meeting that I have the opportunity to call to order. And the board meeting is on Monday, April 27th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. A group of us are in the Innovation Center, and that includes Mr. Zock, myself, Josh Weiss, and Katie Heitz. The remaining board members and our student representative are online, in addition to, at last count, 24 other folks, and most of those being administrators. We'll start tonight's meeting by calling it to order. And Katie, would you please read the roll call?
You have to just say present, Heather.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you guys.
Ms. Garrison, are you present?
There it is. Now I can hear. Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Here.
Mr. Pankratz?
Here.
Ms. Bijak? Ms. Bijak?
Anna?
Anna, you're on mute. There you go.
I know my screen went weird. I couldn't get the mute to unmute, but I'm here.
Mr. LeBrun?
Present, or here, I should say.
Mr. Mary?
Here.
Mr. Zock?
I can say present.
Fantastic. We have all seven board members checked in. The next item on the agenda is proof of notice. And board members and community, what I am holding up with my right hand is a copy of the appropriate proof of notice for tonight's meeting. And next is approval of the agenda. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I will so move.
We've
Second.
Krista.
Second from Troy.
by,
Troy.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Katie, would you read the roll?
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Mr. Zock?
Yes.
Okay, we are off to item A, and that is reorganization. And item number one, item A1 is board members' oath of office. I can report that our three newly elected board members have signed their oath of offices, so we are all set with that. And we will move on to item A2, which is election of officers. And to start, I will entertain a motion for Oregon School Board President.
I move that Mr. Zock be president.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Katie, you have that?
This is Anna with the second.
We have a motion and a second, and according to Robert's Rules of Order, I'll make a second call. Are there any other nominations for president? And I'll make one more call. Are there any other nominations for president?
This is Krista. I'll move that we close nominations for president.
This is Anna. I'll second.
And I think that would be to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot.
Krista, was that part of your motion to cast the unanimous ballot?
It sure was. Thanks, Steve.
And I accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And no additional nominations. Katie, would you please read the roll?
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Mr. Zock?
Yes.
That motion carries, and I will hand the meeting over to the new president,
Great,
Mr. Zak.
thank you. Thank board members for the confidence in me. I look forward to the next year. This is the last year of my term. I am up for reelection in April, and I do not intend to run at that point, but I really look forward to working with the board for another year. And I'm excited to welcome Heather and Kevin to the board. We've had a chance to talk on a couple of occasions, and look forward to you becoming part of our team. We've had a really great past several years working on the path forward and working through a lot of issues. And so this is going to be an exciting year as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic and what our new normal will look like. So really excited about working with all of us together as we move through this course. So that takes us on to election of officers, the remainder of the officers. The next office is the vice president. I'll accept any nominations for vice president.
Steve, I'd like to nominate Tim LeBrun for vice president of the school board.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Are there any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, the appropriate motion would be to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot for Tim LeBrun as vice president. Is there that motion on the floor?
So moved. This is Troy.
Is there a
I'll second. That is Krista.
Krista with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you call the roll? The motion is to cast a unanimous ballot for Tim LeBrun as vice president.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Zak.
Yes. Congratulations, Tim. Being vice president, and it's my intent this year to involve you significantly in terms of leadership roles for the board as we work through a transition from Dr. Bustler to Dr. Bergstrom. So welcome aboard.
Thank you, Steve. I look forward to it.
The next office to be elected is that of treasurer. Are there any nominations for the office of board treasurer?
This is Anna. I would nominate Troy Pankratz for treasurer.
Okay, we have a nomination of Troy Pankratz for treasurer. Is there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the appropriate motion would be to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot for Troy Pankratz as treasurer. Is there a motion to that effect?
I would move that we close nominations and unanimously support Troy Pankratz as treasurer.
Is there a
I will
to
second that.
motion?
Krista, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Zak.
Yes, congratulations, Troy. The next office is that of clerk. I'd accept nominations for the clerk of the Oregon School Board.
I'd like to nominate Krista Flanagan as clerk.
Are there any other nominations for clerk? Are there any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot for Krista Flanagan for clerk of the Oregon School Board. Is that motion on the table?
Yes, I move that we close the nominations and support Krista Flanagan unanimously as the clerk of the Oregon School District.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that. This is Troy.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could you call the roll?
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Pinkley,
I'm sorry, yes?
Yes.
Mrs. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Mary,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes. Congratulations, Krista.
Thank
Signing
you.
the vote again this year. All right, we've got our slate of officers. That takes us into our regular consent calendar. Everybody notice that I've got my mask, my orange one. I got one of Oregon colors, so it's going up at the appropriate times as we socially distance. Consent calendars, any item on the consent calendar that any board member wishes to have removed? Hearing none, I accept a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Also move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. I note that we have a number of contributions. Jay Coleman family, $3,500 for the Netherwood Knoll Special Ed donation from T-shirt sales of Down syndrome awareness. Oregon Community Resource Network of $2,000 for the splash pad. And Megan and Jacob Zier, $200 donation for the splash pad. And then donations from our administrators for the A-Team Scholarship, Kim Griffin, Brad Ashmore, Jason Zerwick, Amy Miller, Candace Whitensey, Shannon Anderson, and Carrie Majeski. So we thank all those folks for their generous donations to the district and for their support. With that, could you call the roll?
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Mary,
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes, items on the consent calendar carry unanimously. Item C, information items. Katie, have you received any communications from the public pursuant to the agenda? Okay, Ms. Height says she has not. Laura Stoller is online, and we talked just before convening, and the OEA does not have a report. Just want to let people know that Laura and Jason Sims, the officers of the OEA and our leadership teams in the administration, continue to talk once a week as we move through the remote learning phase. So thanks, Laura and Jason, for being available and for all the valuable input we've had in conversation at those.
Thanks for the
meetings.
collaboration.
Yeah, it's been really good. Cubby, you're on. Anything to report from the student end?
Hi, board. Not too much. Still plugging away with, I think, week 5 now of online learning. A group of seniors met with some OHS administrators a few days ago to discuss graduation plans. I know you, Dr. Bustler, and you, Mr. Zach, have also held discussions. We're just trying to put together a plan that is both, viable as well as enjoyable for this class. Also, OHS Student Council will be holding its elections this Thursday, so we will know who the next OSD student representative will be by the end of this week. So that's it, though, for me.
Great, thanks, and we'll continue to work with you as we move through our graduation discussions. A lot of that's in flux given the status of the Safer at Home order and the interpretation of that by public health officials. So we'll keep reaching out, Cubby. Thank you for your report. That takes us to item D, action items. This is our annual task, housekeeping task of official designations. So we'll walk through these. The first one, 1A is newspaper resolution to designate the Oregon Observer as the official school district newspaper. I entertain a motion to so designate the Observer in that capacity.
I make that motion. This is Anna Bijak.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. This
I'll
is Tim.
second. This is Troy.
Okay, we got a second, first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Steve, I just have one comment. I know Oregon Observer is a weekly newspaper where the Fitchburg paper is, I think, monthly. And I don't know if we have to have one designation, but I would like us to think about either this year or in the future, if we could have two, or look at how we're getting this information to the Fitchburg paper.
Yep, we will, we'll put that on the agenda or on our list to check with the Fitchburg Star about that. We can always amend this too in the next few meetings if we wanted to include Fitchburg Star. So I'm going to ask Brian to look into that. And if it's appropriate to do so, given the fact that we now have a school building located in Fitchburg, or will for the next school year, to have that notified. I know there is, if we have them as the official designation, I think we also have to post all of our official announcement that
Yes.
that's a cost factor. It doubles the cost of posting. So, but we'll look into that, Krista, and provide information to the board in terms of a update for us in betweener. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we got a motion, a second. Any other conversation? The discussion, seeing none, could you call the roll, Katie, on that motion?
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Mr. Zach?
Yes. Motion carries. And we'll update you on the potential of adding the Fitchburg Star to that and what that would involve. So watch your in-betweener. Item 1B is resolution regarding the investment of district funds. You have in your packet that resolution. This is a document that we've had in place for several years. I think it was amended when Lee Christensen was on the board, and the auditor walked through that with Andy in terms of our investment strategy. Gina, have you had an opportunity to review this particular resolution this year?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and from a legal standpoint, are you comfortable with us adopting this?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I need a motion to entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2020-04 regarding the investment of district funds.
I would make that motion. This is Troy.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Anna.
That was a good motion to make, Troy, as treasurer.
That's what I thought.
Exactly.
Come in on your official duties. Is there any conversation or
Right on.
discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Mr. Zach?
Yes, motion carries. Next item is 1C, resolution depositories. You have resolution 2020-05 in your packet, which identifies the depositories. And Andy, are these the same depositories that we had? Have there been any subtractions or additions?
Nope, these are the exact same depositories that we've had for a number of years.
Okay, and you're comfortable with retaining them as our depositories?
I am.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2020-05 to designate the depositories listed therein as our official depositories.
I would make the motion to approve resolution number 2020-05 as printed in the board packet.
Is there a
I'll second
to that
that.
motion?
I'll second that. This is Tim.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would you call the roll, Katie?
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Marin,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes. Resolution, motion is approved, adopting resolution 2020-05. Item D2 is appointment of representatives. We need a CISA delegate. Kevin and Heather, CISA is an organization of associated school districts around the state. There are, how many, Brian? 16, 13?
14, 15.
Yeah, they're educational cooperatives that provide services to districts across the state. We are part of CISA 2, and we need a delegate to attend their annual meeting. It's only one commitment. I'm not sure that they're gonna have it. I've not heard yet about what they're gonna do with that, but Tim, I would recommend, have you been at one before?
I have.
Okay, would you be willing to go this year? I can do it too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Steve.
Okay, and if your schedule is out of, you can't make it, I would do it, but I'll appoint you as a CISA 2 delegate for attendance at that meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. So we'll be in touch. Stay on the line, Tim. We have in the past always delegated a village park board representative because the village had as one of its park board members, a member of the Oregon School District. And so there's been some change there. Tim, could you talk through that a little bit with the board?
Yeah, you bet. For the last 15 plus years, I think there has been a school board representative on the Oregon Village Park Board. In one of the last meetings over the last 3 weeks or so, the village has made a change to that park board. There are really two changes. First of all, somehow all of the positions gathered together, and 6 of the 7 representatives, their term came up with this last meeting. And so there is one remaining member, the chair, who is Mark Miller. That's the first change. The second change is the village has moved to make all of those park board members a village resident. And so there is not a representative from the school board who will be on the park board. However, we recommend, and it has been discussed at the village board meeting, we recommend that someone who is a village resident and coincidentally is also a school board member continue to play a role on that park board. In one of the last meetings, the meeting early in March, there was a resolution that was approved both at the park board as well as at the village board in the following meeting to cooperatively work, the village to cooperatively work with the Oregon School District, as well as several other communities within the Oregon School District to work on a master plan, particularly for athletic facilities. Obviously, we have some building underway, and the village is also developing some properties for athletic fields. There's a tremendous need for athletic fields lately. And so we all agreed, the park board as well as the village board agreed that we would work, the village board would work cooperatively with the school board, both in terms of funding as well as in terms of activity to coordinate their efforts on particularly getting a clear understanding of the need for athletic facilities and the siting of those athletic facilities in a more regional perspective. And so I strongly recommend that we have someone from this board join or at least apply for one of those village park board positions going forward. There is a deadline. The deadline is not clear to me at the moment, but I believe the next several weeks, they're continuing to take applications for those 6 remaining positions.
Okay. I agree with you, Tim. I think that one of the board members in Oregon should apply to continue the representation of the district on the park board in the interests of that. And so Anna or Krista, I would encourage you to consider that, okay? And we can talk offline more about that.
Can I ask a couple questions about that?
Yes.
So refresh my memory, in terms of Village of Oregon parks, what services does the school district provide to the village in terms of those parks and upkeep?
That's a great question.
Or Andy
Yeah, I'm gonna
or
ask,
Tim?
or Tim or Andy, would you, can you answer that question?
I'll defer to Andy.
In the years past, we've done a little bit more with maintenance. Right now, we really haven't been doing too much with maintenance. When we did it with maintenance in the past, what would happen is different organizations would actually contract with us, and then we would provide basically Mr. Novinska's groundskeeping skills plus some summer workers that we have, and they would go around the village and prep fields and those types of things for baseball and softball. That has kind of changed the last couple of years ago. The youth organizations actually hired their own crew. So we haven't been in that role for a few years now. The main role that we currently serve is really a scheduling kind of central hub. Deb Bossingham has kind of taken a leadership role in that. And as instead of having, because it's hard to know who owns a particular field in the village of Oregon, it could be the village, it could be the school district. We kind of have a one-stop shop where people can go and sign up for individual athletic fields. And then we agreed to go ahead and take on the shelters, which are sometimes next to those athletic fields, and work on that as well. So our main focus is providing that service to anybody that'd be interested in utilizing those facilities during mostly, well, not winter times, but summer, spring, and fall.
So
A couple
is
other
that
things I want to add, Krista. I'm sorry to interrupt. First of all, at the village board meeting this past week, it was very clear that the village board, at least temporarily, is not hiring 11 LTE employees. They've got a significant, they're just being careful, considering they are expecting a reduction in annual revenues. And so before they hire those 11 employees, those LTE, limited term employees for the summer, many of which do mowing, they are holding off on that entirely until they have a more clear picture of their funding. They do plan to hire those people, but they also were very clear that this year, particularly, like it has been a couple of years back, there may be a shortfall in people, in resources, I should say, both financial resources as well as human resources to mow things like spillways and lots of places where athletics take place during the summer. And so there is going to be a shortfall in people mowing in general this year, particularly because of a shortfall in revenues they weren't anticipating when the budget was put together. Oh, one last thing. There also is a lot of conversation around beginning to charge for village park facilities, for shelters, for other picnic areas, other group areas, and that may very well fall under the reservation system. And again, just as Andy mentioned, that reservation system today is entirely hosted by us, both the system itself as well as the human resources to run that system.
My only point in asking the questions was if we are losing representation on that board and we are providing services, it might be something that the board or the district wants to look at in the future in terms of quantifying those services and whether we continue to provide them complimentary or if that's something that we would charge the village for. So something for future discussion potentially.
Thank
And
you.
I would echo that concern from Krista, and especially hearing that there may be some fees associated with future reservations that, as well as the school district, if we're providing that reservation system, that should have representation on that park board.
Yes, I very much agree. I think that especially if fees become an issue and representation becomes an issue. The other thing that I want to note is that those fees, the talk about those fees, is in anticipation for hiring an athletic director, a village athletic director, a village Park
Park and Rec Director, probably.
Park and Rec Director, yes, thank you. Which was expected in the 2021 budget year. And so again, that may have a little bit of a twist considering funding is likely changing for this year since the budget was already approved.
So I'll talk with you and Anna as within this week about who should apply for a position on the park board. We've had a long history of cooperation with the village on parks and joint usage of them and assisting each other in making those facilities available to the public. And I'd like to see that continue in that continued spirit of cooperation. So, okay. Anything more on park board? All right, that goes to WASB delegate. At the annual convention, there's a delegate assembly of all the WASB participating school districts, which is about 300 some. And we have a delegate at that to vote on the resolutions of the WASB delegate body. And so that convention is usually the third week in January. On the delegate convention is that Wednesday. I'll take a quick look. Usually we like to have our new board members attend that. One of them, it'd probably be January 20th this year. Have our new board members serve as the delegate for that. It's a valuable learning experience to see the broad range of policy issues that go through. I don't think I'll appoint a delegate tonight and work with Kevin and Heather as we get closer to the schedule to see who would be available and or interested in doing that. So we'll be in touch, Heather and Kevin, okay? So we won't appoint tonight. It's kind of how we've handled it in the past. All right, board committees, board policy, we're back to appointing committees, policy and visioning, and the policy designates the board president as the person who appoints those committees. I've got a tentative recommendation that I'll put on the table to finalize at the next meeting, but I want any feedback from you during the next couple of weeks. For visioning, I would like to appoint Troy as chair to continue in that capacity. And two other board members on that would be Krista and Kevin. And then for policy, Anna, I would like for you to chair that if you're willing to serve on that with Tim and Heather. So those would be how I would propose to formally appoint, but I want to let that sit for a couple weeks so I can get feedback. But policy would be Anna as chair with Tim and Heather, and then visioning Troy as chair with Krista and Kevin. And then as we've done in the past, all board members can attend any of the committee meetings. So if you're on policy, you're free to attend the visioning committee and vice versa, and that has typically been the case. And so we would continue under that sort of operating procedure. Any questions about that right now? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed with our other action items. And again, these are our standard reorganizational actions and actions that we take at this time of year. The first is the issuance of teacher contracts. This is pursuant to
Steve, sorry. Can I interrupt? This is Troy. I'm just going to make note that I have a conflict of interest with agenda item D3, the teacher contracts. My wife Kelly is employed as a teacher in the district, so I'm just going to go on mute and turn off my camera while you go through this agenda item.
And I
will be abstaining.
Good, thanks for
Okay.
bringing that to our attention. And And would you, Katie, make the minutes clear that Mr. Pankratz is not participating in this discussion? And so issuance of teacher contracts is pursuant to the staffing plan that we've adopted. And Gina, do you want to fill us in a little bit on this agenda item?
Certainly. So we're asking the board tonight for a motion to approve the issuance of the teacher contracts for the 2020-21 school year. And we ask that pursuant to two different statutes, and you'll see those on the board action sheet. One is Wisconsin Statute 11821, and that provides that we are required to issue contracts to our teachers in writing. And then that statute talks about the information that needs to be in those contracts, and our contracts do comply with that statute. And then 11822 is the statute that talks about the timelines for teacher contracts. And what that statute requires is that we give teachers either a notice that we are renewing their contracts or that we are non-renewing their contracts. And the deadline for that is May 15th. And there's a number of other procedural items in that statute that I'm happy to talk with anybody about. But those are the two statutes that really govern the issuance of contracts. So we're asking tonight for the board to authorize us to issue teachers contracts for next school year. We do not issue contracts to teachers who are on what's called an interim contract for this school year, meaning that they taught for this school year only, and they know that that position does not continue. Most of those are really because of child leaves that we have where the teacher is returning from a leave. We do not offer contracts to teachers who have given us notice of resignation in writing or whose teachers we are possibly looking at not renewing their contract. So absent that, we are looking for a motion to approve the issuance of teacher contracts for next year.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
It's Krista. I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
This is
I'll
Anna.
second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Anna, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, could you call the roll, Katie?
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes. Motion carries. Troy, you can come back. All right. Issuance of licensed non-rep contracts. And again, this is similar to issuance of teacher contracts. Gina, you want to weigh
Yes.
in?
Sorry, is there an up? Yeah, so this is the group of educators that we have. They still have to have a license from DPI, but we call them licensed non-represented because they are not represented by the Oregon Education Association. So years ago, when the collective bargaining agreement was formed, usually there was an agreement between the employer and the union about which positions would be included in that CBA, it's called, and which would not. And so for example, our counselors are included in the Oregon Education Association collective bargaining agreement, but our school psychologists are not. So this really encompasses the group of positions like our school psychologists, our school nurses, our occupational therapists, similar positions that we also issue contracts to. We do follow the same statutory language in 11821 and 11822 because they do all have licensed issues by DPI. So looking for the board to approve us issuing those contracts for the non-represented staff for next year.
Any questions of Gina? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the issuance of licensed non-represented contracts.
This is Anna. I move approval.
This is Tim. I'd second approval.
Can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes. Motion approved. Item D5 is similar. It's the issuance of administrator contracts. Gina?
So similarly, looking for a motion from the board to approve the issuance of the administrator contracts. These contracts are governed by 11824 under state law that outlines a similar procedure as the teacher contracts. So these would be for positions that hold an administrator license, such as principal, associate principal, director of instruction, etc.
Any questions of Gina on the issuance of administrator contracts? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the issuance of administrator contracts.
I'll move approval.
So moved. This is Troy.
All right.
I'll second. Troy with a second.
Donna, come in first and then Troy.
No, Krista.
Oh, okay. Hi, Krista. Okay. All right. Any discussion? All right. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz.
Yes.
Ms. Garrison.
Yes.
Mr. Maring.
Yes.
Ms. Bijak.
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun.
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes, motion carries. Item B6 is our 2020-2021 Dane County New Teacher Project Shared Services Agreement. This is similar to agreements that we've had in place in years past. Brian, is this yours or?
Sure, I can take care of it. We're looking for a motion by the board to approve our participation in the 2020-21 school year for the Dane County New Teacher Project. Just as some short information or a little background, this project's been in place for about 15 years, 15 plus years. It's housed at the Wanakee Community School District. It is overseen by the Dane County superintendents. We prepare the budget along with the director, and then we bring the budgets back to our local school districts. If you'll notice in some of the exhibits, there's a 6-tier system of membership costs, which goes by enrollment because we believe that to be the most equitable way to do it. We fall into tier number 4, the same category with Wanakee, which has an enrollment of 3,900 to 4,500 students. Obviously, someday we will be out of that enrollment tier and be in the tier with Verona. Likely Wanakee will join us in that group. So the shared service agreement is something that we brought to the board a number of times, and we're seeking your approval. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2020-2021 Dane County New Teacher Project Shared Services Agreement.
I would move to approve the new contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Anna.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. LeBrun.
Yes.
Bijak.
Yes.
Ms. Garrison.
Yes.
Mr. Maring.
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan.
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz.
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes, motion carries. That gets us through the action items. Kevin and Heather, it's good that we have all those on the organization meeting to break our new board members in easy on the non-controversial stuff. There we go. All right, discussion items, committee reports. I'm not sure we have anything from policy or visioning tonight, correct?
Nothing from policy.
Troy?
Nothing from visioning. We have not met in the past 2 weeks.
Okay, informational items, distance learning update on this. Are we on the Leslie and John show again tonight?
Yes, we are.
You guys are on.
All right. I don't think we did a mic check, but I'm assuming y'all can hear me okay.
You're good on your end.
All right, sounds good. So distance learning is progressing. As Cubby mentioned, we're in about week 5. The updates that are relevant for this week are basically that after Governor Evers issued the most recent order, which closed schools for the remainder of the school year, we had to make some adjustments based on that. When this first occurred, we had the whole week of March 16th with no classes. And then we had spring break, and then we had a 3-day week to try out our distance learning plans that we had made during the previous 2 weeks. But at that time, we were looking at it being sort of a temporary measure, being 2 to 3 weeks maybe. Well, with the closure to the end of the year, we had the challenge of needing to adapt and redesign the curriculum for the rest of the year without that nice big chunk of a week for teachers to collaborate. What's been interesting is that for us, and not just teachers, not just Oregon, but the amount of work that's actually been happening at home. I've read a report about it across the nation has actually increased quite a bit. People on average are working, those who have jobs and can work from home are working an average of 3 hours per day longer. We've heard from a lot of our teachers that they are doing a lot of work, which you would expect, in that they've had to redesign and adapt their activities, their curriculum, and their assessments for the distance learning format. And also, we've been doing a lot of meeting. There's a lot of collaboration and coordination that happens with that. The other thing that we heard from parents is that we need some, and this is somewhat mixed reviews, because some said, a few said we want more work for our kids. Some said we want less. But they also mostly said that we need some more clarity and simplicity. And a lot of them said, we could just use some more time to help for our kids to sort of do catch-up work and consult with teachers and get the help that normally they would have face-to-face. So we looked to some of our neighbor districts and asked how they were handling this. And one of the common tools that's being done to address these issues is to dedicate 1 or 2 days a week as a collaboration, and consultation and completion day. At least they don't call it that, but we did because we like alliteration. So we thought the 3 C's would be kind of appropriate. So the administrator, we proposed this, we talked about it with the OEA leadership. And then we asked leadership teams how they felt about it and what their preferences would be. And they were all in support of it. They see the value to it, and they were grateful for the idea. Some had brought up the idea themselves. The leadership teams said that after debating which day would work best, they thought that Fridays would be a good day for this because it allows students to do some work completion from that particular week. And it also provides time where teachers can work together. So basically what we rolled out and announced is that we're going to have 4 days of distance learning, which will happen the way they have been. And then 1 day a week, which will be Fridays, is going to be dedicated toward that collaboration, consultation, and completion of work. So for students at the K-8 level, this means basically that Fridays are set aside for catching up on any work, because we know that everyone has different home situations. Also, they can participate in enrichment activities, wellness activities, which have been provided by a lot of the staff. But the important part here is that no new work is assigned. So they're not getting new assignments for that day. At the high school level, it means that the day is basically for work completion and there's no new work assigned. And there will also be no scheduled office hours on Friday, although students are still encouraged to contact teachers if needed, and teachers are expected to still be responsive. And that's where that consultation part comes in, where it's a day for teachers. Well, from the teacher perspective, basically we're saying that this is not a day off by any means. Our goals are still to help students continue to learn and grow academically, to maintain positive relationships that facilitate learning, and to support families in all different circumstances as they help their students learn. Not only just being the primary teachers now who are with the students, but also to help students learn in a new way. So excuse me. So staff are expected to use Fridays to collaborate with colleagues to adapt or to redesign the curriculum into that distance learning format for the remainder of the year, and to contact students who are having trouble completing work and to be available for consultation with students and parents. The other thing that we're doing at this point is we're asking for teachers to post the assignments the evening before. Previously, we had said by 8:15 every morning, you need to have the day's assignments posted on the Google Doc that was shared with all families. And the feedback we got from parents was, that's very difficult if I have to be at work. So for those who are working, especially essential workers who are working outside the home, if they are to help their children organize their work for the day, it's pretty hard to do if they're already gone. So what we've asked teachers to do is to post their work by 5 o'clock the evening before students are to start working on it. And we also would like people to post more at the upper grade levels. A lot of the work is posted on a weekly basis. So my 2 boys who are in high school basically get a ton of work that they're going to work on for the entire week. It's just a little more project-based, some bigger ideas. And so the expectation there is that teachers would post that weekly work by 5 p.m. or by 4 p.m. on the Friday before that week. And that gives parents time to look at the entire week and kind of organize work, which is important when you're talking about having to coordinate with older students taking care of younger students, some students who are working during the day, and just trying to figure all that out. So those are the changes that we've made based on feedback from parents and teachers. So far, the reception has been very good. The first day that it will take effect is this Friday, May 1st. So, actually, the expectation to post items the night before actually started today. And then this Friday will be the first collaboration, consultation, and completion day. So that's essentially the status. Those are the changes we've made in response to parent and teacher feedback. Leslie, is there anything else that we should mention that's relevant?
I think I would just want to point out that we're constantly looking for what we can learn from the distance learning situation that we can apply to face-to-face instruction or to our school system as a whole when we come back. And one of the things that we're learning is that while we have always been a collaborative organization, I think distance learning is increasing the amount of collaboration that's happening between teachers. As an example, interventionists who are also usually working with students while teams of grade level teachers met, they are now able to attend the meetings with the grade level teachers. And this is leading us to look at all kinds of collaboration that could enhance the student experience, that we have to make sure we remove the barriers so that we can continue to see this grow as we move forward.
So what questions do you have for us about this?
Yeah. Any board member have any questions of John and or Leslie? One thing that I'd like to know in the future, not an answer tonight, but question that I get sometimes in the public is, what is the rigor of the assignments that are going out? Are we keeping up with curriculum that was on pace? And if not, what does that mean for the future? Where are we at in terms of delivering the curriculum versus what would have happened in the schools had this not occurred? Where will we be at the end of the year? I think that's important for the board to judge as we assess options for going into next year. Where has AP decided what they're doing in terms of their testing?
Yeah, so I can give you a partial answer now if you want one. AP has decided that they're going to, they've truncated the course content. They're shrinking their exams down to 45 minutes in length, and they will be online at-home tests.
Wow.
So, and they have actually done some promotional work, reaching out to parents, because I'm one of them, and said, don't, they said this is, it still counts. And they said, please, stay signed up, and reassuring us that colleges are still accepting this and are actually eager for it, eager to have the students take the AP courses. So it is a truncated content amount and a shortened time period for the test, and it's done at home. But they say they are confident that they are able to adequately assess the student work and knowledge base during that time in whatever that format looks like. We haven't seen it yet because they haven't happened, but that's AP.
Okay. What kind of, what are we seeing generally in terms of interaction between a teacher and individual students one-on-one, or what is the expectation? And number two, in terms of bringing groups or all the classes together in one session so that there's a social aspect to remote learning so that they don't lose sight of all their classmates.
Well,
Well,
oh, go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, from a parent's perspective, what my kids are doing is they're on their phone using Zoom or Google Hangouts with their friends who are in their grade. They are talking together and working through their work together. And so both of my kids are being as social, if not potentially more social than they were, simply because they're reaching out to their friends. They're doing their coursework with their friends on their phones. That's
Looking
my
at
experience.
is more as to whether with the teacher having a session with some or all of the kids in group settings, or as a total class. Does that happen, or how's that being handled, John or Leslie?
It does happen. It's been interesting because I think everyone's assumption when the closure first happened, or there was an assumption, I think, really initially, especially at the high school, that they were going to just keep running classes on the same schedule that they had it, and that they were going to have these large group video meetings. What we discovered is that that's not really feasible for quite a few reasons. One is just internet access and technology access. Another is multiple people in the home sharing devices. And another one is, as we mentioned before, some students who have additional responsibilities. For example, going to work because their parents have lost their job, or taking care of younger siblings while the parents are working. So we actually discouraged the synchronous video conferencing from being the exclusive way to hold a class. And I guess the best practices that we found is that a recorded session with sort of a presentation is actually better from a perspective of having it being accessible to people, because then it can be accessible by people not during the actual class time. It can happen in the evenings or whenever is convenient. However, and we actually were contacted and have been working with a parent in the district who has 3 students in our brick and mortar schools, but who's been an online teacher for about 15 years and has worked with CISA 2 and does some consulting. And she said that one of the really important parts is to actually have video of the teacher, whether it's live or recorded. And she said, teachers generally don't like it. She doesn't even like it, having the video, but she said it's important to do because students need to see their teachers' faces. Leslie and I took that to heart, and so we started doing our emails to teachers in video format. We still provide the printed version for reference, and we make sure we learned how to do closed captioning for those with hearing issues. But we started doing it, and we actually got really good feedback from teachers as well. Now, that wasn't live, that was recorded. I would say from a parent perspective, the amount of synchronous, like real-time video conferencing has decreased a little bit from the first week, just because it wasn't quite as feasible. The one-to-one video conferencing is happening, I think, in different amounts and different levels. For example, in the elementary levels, there are some interventionists who are working with students on a one-to-one basis, because that's just the way that you would normally do intervention. And there are teachers who say, hey, this is my office hour, feel free to drop in, or to establish those, group discussion times. But it's hard to generalize because that mode lends itself better or worse to certain content areas. And also there are some teachers who, because of where they live, don't have good internet access and can't get good internet access and don't have good cellular reception. So even if we give them a MiFi, it's very difficult for them to, it's just not feasible to participate in a real-time video conference. It is a real concern, though. I mean, there's really nothing more that teachers want than to, especially teachers of, the younger children, than to, see their faces and have a conversation face to face. So it's something we strive to do, but also we want to do it in a way that isn't excluding people who don't have that option.
Yeah. I had my third grade teacher daughter did a Zoom last week, like just a half hour with everybody in her class, and was really invigorated that it wasn't instructional, it was just a social thing. And she was amazed about how the kids were just giddy about being able to talk in that format to the rest of their kids. So,
Steve, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, either Leslie or John, what percentage of our student body has not engaged at all in distance learning for one reason or another, or is just doing it, has maybe done it once or twice? I'm just interested in terms of the absenteeism or engagement overall.
I think that is varying depending on the level. What we have done is we have made sure that we have safeguards or systems in place so that students are contacted if we don't hear from them after either 3 missed assignments or 3 attempts to contact them, or our systems are set up at every school to make sure that we don't lose contact with any of our students. However, having contact with them and having them engage fully in the work, they're different things. And so at the younger level, there are some families who are just simply opting out. They're saying, thank you, you're doing a good job, but this is too much for us right now, and we're just not going to do it. And so, that is a reality for a lot of families right now, is that there's a lot happening. And sometimes they're just not able to do anything related to school. And that's not a large number at the elementary, not a large number at all, a very small handful per school. But I would say the number of students who aren't participating at all goes up by the grade levels. So there's a larger number of high school students who aren't engaging in distance learning. And perhaps Jim or Kim or Brad would like to talk about that, because they are also having meetings and being very specific about who they are not hearing from and reaching out to those students.
Hello, everybody. We have a group of students that we're tracking through our student services department. We've got a spreadsheet that gets updated when we've got kids that are falling off. And it gives us an opportunity to have a good sense on what supports different kids need. We're also tracking grades and progress. And so 2 different things. When we have students that are not showing, teachers are the first line of defense, and that Friday extra day is going to be helpful to try to round kids up. Where they're not getting responses, our student services team and admin team have split that list up. And we've had good success finding kids. And we're gonna keep doing this right up till the very end. So it's just a lot of hard work.
Thank you. I mean, I think that piece maybe gets missed about all the things that you guys are doing in terms of just keeping in touch with our kids. And it's not only about schoolwork, but it's about making sure they're okay. So I really applaud you on that.
Any other questions or comments from any board members on our update on distance learning?
Yeah, just for Jim. Jim, can I just ask you, have you had an experience where someone fell off the radar and you reached out and what was the response? What was the response from the parent or the student on that Friday reach out? And I know that hasn't started yet, but in one of those reach out experiences.
Yeah, I've had a few teachers who have let me know when a kid needs a booster shot that I might have kind of a key relationship with. And that has been helpful I've gotten feedback that the kids need some encouragement, or, we've had some students who feel like I'm so far behind, I don't know where to start. And they need kind of to be encouraged that, your teachers want to engage you where you're at. Nothing is lost at this point. And we've had dozens of conversations. I know that myself, Kim, and Brad, as well as our student services team, and every situation is unique. And I think us understanding where our kids are at and then what we can do to support them is really important. The other thing is we've had a number of students who are experiencing grief right now related to family members. We've had an unfortunate run on some deaths of parents in the high school, and it has caused us. Our staff has been incredibly responsive and compassionate and supportive. And so, we are doing Steve's question about, where's the rigor and where are we at? We're meeting kids right where they're at, and we're trying to challenge kids with what they're capable of in the moment. And I've started to reach out to kids just by email, just kids that, and I'm getting some really interesting feedback back that much of I'm sharing with staff, because it gives us a little insight into what's working and what's not. And then how varied the responses are just indicate we just got to know our kids and meet them right where they're at and give them what they need to get us through this difficult period, for sure.
I think that Jim's response is just indicative of what we all know, and that is whether we're face-to-face or distance learning, relationships are the core of the whole thing. Knowing our students, knowing our families right now, not just our students, but our families and their situation is extremely important, so that we know how we can be supportive and what role we can play.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
This is Anna. I have a quick question. I'm just wondering, I know that, and I don't know if I missed an email, but what is being done for distance learning for our youngest learners, the K through 2s? Because I know we had like digital, iPad pickup and all of that for the 3rd grade and up. So I've kind of lost track of what's happening with that younger group. So I'd like an update on that.
So because we have never been one-to-one with our younger students, one-to-one devices, and that was a philosophical decision. We made that choice. But we did know that there were some families who, in order to communicate with the teacher, they were going to need to pick up a device too. So we had an additional day where we invited K2 parents who needed a device to come through and pick one up for the purpose of communication, not because that was the only way their students could learn what we were sending out to them. So for K2, we've been mailing work home to students every 2 weeks. And I think we're mailing, the last mailing was 60 pages. And it's some fun stuff, and it's stuff that the teacher then still has the Google page, right, where parents log on or their student logs on to be able to see what the work is for the day and how it corresponds to that paper packet, because we're not expecting our little ones to be on the computer. As a matter of fact, our kindergartners did not even have email addresses. That isn't what we did yet. So they couldn't even get into Chromebooks until we made sure that they had email addresses based just on this distance learning situation. Anything to add to that, John?
No, I guess just the other clarification is that for K2, because we didn't have those digital learning systems in place. Well, one thing is we told teachers, please don't all of a sudden launch some new tool that no one's used before, because there was a lot of stress among students and parents. and trying to do something really different didn't make a lot of sense. And so K-12, we basically said, don't try to do something completely new. Use what your students are already familiar with and what parents are already familiar with, because we need as much familiarity as we possibly can right now, because there's too much, chaos and unknown things. So at K2, technology wasn't really a part of that. However, we did, that was a choice. And so when we looked at that, we said, okay, we're going to do the mailing out, but also we said, it's really, given all there's sort of an irony here, which is that over the past, however many years or decades, we've shifted from a lecture and rapt attention and kids in rows type of format of schooling, which would have lent itself fairly well to lecturing over TV or internet, to a much more experiential, hands-on, exploratory and social model. So as the teaching and learning has improved, as we get to know better about the best practices and age-appropriate and social-emotional learning, it's made it less compatible with a sort of online video format. Because of that, we said to K2 teachers, because they were immediately like, how in the world am I going to, do this? And there wasn't really a good way. And so we said, you know what, don't focus on trying to do new material for students. You had them for basically 3/4 of the year. For the fourth quarter, work on having them maintain and practice the skills that they already learned, give them enrichment activities that they can do if they want, because we don't really know what their home situation is going to be, and just try to continue that level of learning, focus on the core elements. If you can get them to keep on reading, keep on exploring things, that's the thing to do. And the teachers have been great, because they came up with all these activities that are really easy to do at home with virtually no extra materials. It's like, take this sheet of paper, go around the house. What shapes do you see? Count, all these different things. Or, go look outside. What parts of nature do you see? And so there's a lot of activities, and my kids are too old. They didn't get these cool packets, but some people did. So I don't know if Gina has any she wants to share, but I saw her turn her mic on. So
I would just share, as a parent and just anecdotally, in our HR department, we all have little ones at each of the 3 schools, and we're just so happy with what we're getting. We love getting the packet, and the work is really meaningful. So to John's point, I feel, at least from a parent lens, that the K2 teachers have done a fantastic job of keeping learners engaged without technology.
Great.
Thanks. Any other questions from the board or comments? Okay, hearing none, then we'll continue to have this as an agenda item discussion, because that's going to be really critical as we start talking about summer school, what 2020 looks like. If any of you have any questions or comments about this, shoot those to me and Brian and Leslie and John, and we'll work that in as part of our feedback loop, because they're getting it on a regular basis from parents and students. And so if board members have any insight on what you're hearing, that would be helpful for us to share. Okay. All right, that takes us to information item F2, superintendent's report. Brian.
Thank you, Steve. First, to just share a little background information for Heather and Kevin. Under the superintendent's report, this is just informational items at a high level that we want to bring to your attention. It's not something that we need board action on. And sometimes there are more and sometimes there are less items that I report on. Tonight I have 6, and I'm sharing one of those items with Dr. Bergstrom. So when I get to that item, I will ask Dr. Bergstrom to comment on it. First item up on the superintendent's report is the last day of school, which is a super important thing that we get a lot of contact from parents on. The last day of school, and I had this conversation with Mr. Zock earlier, actually last week, it's going to be Friday, June 5th, and that's the last day of school for students. Then Monday, June 8th, will be our last teacher contact day. And when you do the math, that means we are in week 6. We have 6 weeks of school remaining. We talked about this at administrative team last week, the importance that we have a strong and reasonable finish to the school year. And I know our administration and school staff and teachers are committed to that, as well as parents and students. The second item I have is graduation 2020. And today I asked Katie to add to the board packet. It is an item on page 50. Oh, I just deleted it. I didn't delete it from the packet. I deleted it from my reference. It's page number 52 of the board packet. It says graduation in COVID-19. This is from Dane County Health, and again, just helpful information on graduation. As of today, we are continuing to work on the appropriate graduation plan. Last week, Mr. Kleiner reached out to Jenna, and student voice is going to be so important in terms of what, where we finally land on the appropriate graduation plan for this year. We don't have it yet. We hope to be able to report it back to the full board on May 11th. Item number 3 on the list is an item that we talked about at our last meeting, and that's summer school 2020. And our plan is to bring a final plan to the board on May 11th as well. Obviously, our interpretation of the safer at home, it looks really challenging to provide in face-to-face summer school in the month of July, but our plan is to do to provide some virtual summer school, but we'll have all the details hammered out and be ready to report back to the board. The fourth item is contingency planning for face-to-face start of school this next year or an online start. And I'm going to ask Dr. Bergstrom to comment on this because she is leading that group that's looking at it for next school year.
Mm-hmm. Because there are lots of ways to look at the contingency planning for our fall opening. It's the academics, the social, emotional, and logistical. And what are the different potential scenarios for the fall? And how do we plan for each of them simultaneously? So what we're doing is we're right now reading articles regarding all of the strategies that are being discussed across all of our different states. As well as things that are already being implemented in European countries that are starting to open up their schools. What strategies are they using, and what can we learn from the fact that they are doing this a little earlier than we are? So with all of this learning and talking, of course, administrative conversations are already beginning regarding contingency planning for if we are able to open, but with significant social distancing restrictions, or if we are only able to continue to offer distance learning for the beginning of the school year, or if we have to move into distance learning at any point during the school year. Or the best case scenario, we get to come back to face-to-face schooling, which is what we all want. But even if that happens, we expect that there will be an increased number of students and families who want to maintain blended options for a period of time. Consequently, all of those things are up for discussion. There'll be a committee of us to discuss all of these possibilities. And we're really taking the feedback that we're getting from staff and parents very seriously, because I think it'll be important in planning forward. So we know that should we need to, at any point in the future, offer distance learning again, that we are looking into things like a single sign-on feature, so that any program that a student would have to sign into, there would be the same password and login information to make things much easier for families, because we know just that keeping all the passwords straight was a bit of a logistical problem for some families as this started. Common learning management system. We know that there are multiple systems currently being used, And we know that this isn't ideal and that it would really be better for our students and families if there was just one. So there are all kinds of issues to think through, but the conversations have started and they will be inclusive as things move forward. So I'll take any questions anyone wants to ask at the moment, but we're very much in the planning stages on this.
Any questions of Leslie on reintegration into 2020-21?
Leslie, you mentioned you're watching what Europe is doing. Is there, if you can think of one intriguing thing about the European model as they get up and running, what would that be?
Well, we recently read an article on Denmark schools reopening, and one of the things they're doing is they're doing schooling in shifts so that the class sizes don't exceed 10 students at a time. So I think if we were to come back to school in the fall with significant social distancing restrictions in place, that is something that would at least be a part of the conversation.
Great, thank you for that example.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, have we talked at all or thought about starting earlier than September 1 because of what's happened this year to try to reintegrate?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that should be a part of the conversation. It will really just depend on how soon we can have gatherings large enough to hold school, and whether or not that, how far into August before we get that thumbs up, the guidance that is now acceptable. Hopefully we'll get it much earlier than that, which would make starting school earlier potentially feasible. But as of right now, a lot of that is unknown.
Yeah, the whole Denmark thing of splitting classrooms, that's intriguing, and it would play in well with an August start where you bring in groups of kids in small shifts to catch up from this year and to launch into next year.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we've, if I can interject, that we've discussed is with summer school, the possibility of delaying summer school to August to be able to have that face-to-face summer school interaction, especially to provide some of that recovery work for the students who need it the most. And as we, obviously there's some logistical components to that, but that's another possibility that we've thought about to try to do sort of a reintegration. And so from the academic perspective, doing sort of a recovery catch-up for the students who need it the most in August so that they're more up to speed when we start with the full group, or as full as we can be in September. That's just another option to throw out there that we've been thinking of in terms of summer school, which obviously has impacts on when we start the regular school year.
Good, thanks. Any other board questions or comments with respect to this item of the superintendent's report? Okay, Brian, I think you're at 5.
Yes, 2 more items. First, thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. Item number 5 is the Badger Conference / WIAA sports situation. I think you're familiar that last week, the WIAA canceled all spring sports tournament series. And what that means is there really is no spring sports. And of course, the WIAA is connecting that to the Safer at Home order by the governor. The one addition they provided, and they being the WIAA, they're allowing any member districts, and we are a member of the WIAA, to allow sports to continue through the month of July. In essence, this would allow the district to practice in July, or district teams to practice in July and potentially have exhibition games. I can tell you this has been a hotly discussed item across the state, and conferences are taking action on it. Last week, the Big 8 conference, which is the Madison area, Sun Prairie, Middleton, Janesville, and Beloit, they opted to close the sports season. I know our Badger Conference ADs, and Mike reported to me last week that the Badger Conference ADs have recommended to close the season as well. and this was a topic of discussion at today's Badger Conference superintendent meeting. Of course, we wish the sports seasons were not canceled or impacted by the pandemic, but clearly they are. And the superintendents are going to vote on this in the next couple of days. And so far, the superintendent conversation from today was very similar to the AD conversation. So board members, if any of you have feedback you'd like to provide to me before I vote on this with other conference superintendents, I would welcome that. I think the Badger Conference will make an announcement by the end of this week. And then the sixth item is a thank you, and it's a thank you to parents, it's a thank you to students, thank you to our teachers and staff. Distance learning is new for everyone. We are learning a great deal. We're adjusting. We'll continue to fine tune this for the balance of our 6 weeks for the 2019-20 school year. And as Dr. Bergstrom mentioned, if we face distance learning again, this will make us stronger as a district, and our students and parents and teachers and staff will be equally stronger as we continue to look at this in years ahead. Overall, it's gone exceptionally well. And of course, there's always time for adjustment. What field or discipline is there more adjustments with than education? And we are committed to making distance learning the best it can be for the balance of the year. And we will do a rather significant survey at the end of the year, and that will give us an opportunity to reflect on that over the summer. And if distance learning comes back again in future school years, we will be better and stronger for it. So with that, I will conclude my report and see if there's any questions.
Yeah. Any questions from any board member on Brian's report? Okay. Future agenda closing. No, we're going to talk about summer school.
We're going to talk about summer school. We're also going to have a public hearing on our waiver of instructional hours, and Gina has been working on that.
Yep.
So that will be our two major items at our May 11th meeting.
Okay. If any board member has any item they would like placed on the May 11th agenda, let me know. All right. Before we go to checkout, the board will be adjourning into closed session at the conclusion of our checkout session, and we'll be signing off on this particular format. And then board members, you've got another meeting. Brian and Katie and I are going to adjourn over to our small conference room and Zoom in there, but you have another link to get in with just board members for our closed session, and that will deal with potential non-renewals of individual contracts, consideration of adjourning to closed session for that under Wisconsin statute 1985, 1C, F, and G, and then to confer with legal counsel about potential land acquisitions pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985, 1E and Wisconsin statutes 1985, 1G. We're not going to return to open session from those. So, we'll go to checkout at this point in time. Tim LeBrun, anything to check out on?
I just want to again welcome our new members, Kevin and Heather. I'm looking forward to Heather. We're going to be working together on the policy committee. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm just looking forward to getting back to doing this in person. Frankly, I think this is working out fine, but it feels so temporary to me. I hope it's more temporary than I think.
Yeah.
That's it.
Krista?
I just want to echo what Tim said in welcoming Heather and Kevin to the board. Excited to have you join us. And then just wanted to give, I don't think anybody mentioned, but give a shout out to Cubby and Jenna Sharkus, who are our board reps this year, for doing the Spirit Week for Oregon School District this week. I saw a lot of people participate and families really thought that was fun. You guys have been amazing co-leaders of student council this year, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Flanagan.
Calling Anna.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Anything for checkout?
No, but I just also want to welcome Heather and Kevin to the board. Look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. And I hope that we can meet in person sooner than later.
Troy,
Nothing additional.
Heather?
Nope, just wanted to say thanks everybody for the welcome and looking forward to serving.
Great. Kevin?
Yes, thanks as well to everybody for the welcome. I look forward to being in person sometime in the near future, and I look forward to providing whatever value I can to the board moving forward. And it's going to be exciting working with such a great group of people. And I'm also curious if Jim's still walking on his treadmill at this point.
Jim, you still walking? Oh, he might have signed up.
Yep, he
He's
is.
swimming laps now.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Kevin and Heather, I'll reach out to you in the next day or so to debrief. We had an opportunity, Heather, Kevin and I, to do a Zoom session to prepare for tonight. That was really good to talk to you guys for about an hour. And I'll be in touch with you to connect up about the meeting and about the future meeting. So look forward to that. Okay, so we're not gonna adjourn, we're gonna recess for a few minutes while Brian, Katie, and I go to the next room. Everyone's gonna sign off of this. Do all the board members have the connect up for the next session of the meeting?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, just make sure we do. Heather, do you?
Yeah, she said yes.
Okay, got it. All right. Tim, you do? Krista?
Yes, I do. Go good.
Yes.
Okay, good. Make sure that one of the things that we got to make sure of is when we're in closed session, that there isn't anybody in the vicinity that can hear the nature of that conversation. So we'll have to put that on the record. It's one of the concerns about doing closed sessions remotely, is you're not quite sure who's in your closed session. So we'll have to have you affirm that no one's present during that. So with that, we're going to sign off and recess, and we'll reconnect board members in a couple of